It's officially summer. We just had a long weekend here in Ontario. That's where Toronto is, if you don't know. And I thought I would cake a kiddie pool.
I'm actually really excited about this.
I know why, because you made us take it outside. It's because he made us take it out in the sun, which he wouldn't go out in, by the way.
No, yeah, exactly.
But take your cake out there.
Yeah.
I have a great idea. Imagine Orhan ruling a country. I ban sunshine and he builds like metal slate. Like it's like the whole country is like the Sky Dome. Okay, so you want to know what's really special about this cake? I used cake pans that I own that I've rarely baked in because they're so big. So to make this cake, I baked two 16-inch round chocolate layers of cake. It's basically the biggest round pan you can get, because once it gets to 18 inches or 20, they make like half moon pans, because basically the center would be raw and the outside would be burnt. So 16 is the biggest round pan I have. Because the kiddie pool I'm making is gonna have sort of rounded edges, I'm leveling my cake a little higher than I normally would, allowing for that natural rounding where the cake humps to be a part of my cake. Now I'm gonna cut each cake into 2 layers. This is really tricky because the cakes are so big, so your knife gets more buried than it would in a smaller cake. Just take your time, and I still go around using my Lazy Susan to get nice layers. So I have 4 giant round layers of cake now. So the 2 top layers that were from each cake, they're already rounded because I leveled them, leaving that rounded part. Now I'm gonna flip them over and round the other side. And then the 2 other layers that are completely straight, I'm gonna round both edges, top and bottom, all the way around the cake. Okay, it is time to simple syrup all these cakes. I might need to refill Sir Squeeze. I don't know if Sir Squeeze is ready to fill this pool with simple syrup.
I thought you were gonna fill the bowl with simple syrup, but you have something else in mind for that, I guess.
How can I fill a cake with simple syrup? I can't fill a cake with liquid. You don't know the #1 rule? Like, I don't let water touch fondant. You never let water touch fondant. No. You know what I feel like? We need a company-wide quiz. Yes. It is time to crumb coat and chill them all. I'm crumb coating each one separately and putting it in the fridge. It's gonna be like the bar exam. Do you understand? If you don't get 80%, you're out.
Oh, so
yeah.
It's serious.
Oh, this is a serious quiz. This is the cake bar. Okay, we're gonna do this. I think we should do this and we should film it.
Yeah, it should be on camera.
Mainly for my own entertainment. My crumb coat is chilled, and now I'm gonna ice each one. I'm mainly paying attention to the sides, so that rounded part. And I'm gonna use my invention. I actually cut a new invention because the invention I always use is a little too big of a square. So I cut a smaller square, and I use that to keep those sides nice and rounded. I'm going to place one of these layers onto a pizza pan because I wanna be able to lift this cake afterward, and I don't wanna see a board. The first cake I wanna cover is that bottom cake that is already on a pizza pan, and I've decided to cover this in a nice teal colored fondant. I need to measure the circumference of this cake and then roll a band of fondant that is long enough as well as high enough to cover the sides and slightly fold over the cake. Now that I've rolled out my teal band, I'm gonna reverse roll it over a French rolling pin and then unravel it around my cake, smoothing it all along the sides, letting it fold over the top just a bit. And then I'll trim the top by putting, you could use a big cake pan or a large bowl. You just wanna place that on top and cut an even rim around and just remove that excess fondant from the middle. And then you can trim underneath. And I'm just gonna make sure to wrap my fondant a little bit under the pizza pan so we don't see any of the metal.
Oh, I see. That excited me for some reason.
Okay, metal, because I said metal. You thought about the dome that's gonna cover your city. That's what happened.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what you're like? You're like Gru from Despicable Me.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are. Because you come up with like miserable ideas, but then you maintain that they're not miserable. Am I wrong? I came up with this idea that I wanted to make a fondant pattern that kind of looks like my sprinkle chair. I clay extruded a bunch of colors of fondant. So I did white, yellow. I don't even remember what I did. I need a picture of my kiddie pool cake. Oh, you're so cute. Okay, I'm talking to my cake, not you or Han. Now the next thing I want to do is use a ruler and a sharp knife to line up the strands and cut them all into short lengths, as if each little length is a sprinkle. Then I'm going to take all the colors and mix them together. So now I have all these fondant sprinkles. So now, here's where, this is where I always challenge myself because I came up with this idea, but even as I was doing this, I didn't know it was gonna work. So I had a backup plan, but the good news is it worked. So
Can I get what it is?
Yeah. You haven't watched any footage?
No.
Okay, tell me how I did it. All right, you're already ready for a quiz. Tell me how I did it, Orhan.
So you rolled the pink fondant.
Yeah.
And then you put the sprinkles on.
Yeah.
That fondant.
Yes.
And then you cut around the sprinkles and remove the pink part.
Can I answer?
Right?
But you watched it.
I know, I'm just...
I sprinkled my fondant sprinkles onto the top of the fondant. Then I used a fondant smoother to press them down into the fondant to keep them in place because I was afraid, rolling will press them, but it also might move them. So I pressed them in place. Then I used my rolling pin to roll over the fondant so those fondant sprinkles just stuck to the surface of the fondant. And then I reverse rolled it up and wrapped it around my cake.
So it's almost like what I suggested.
No, you suggested a whole other part that was so difficult. You thought I was gonna hold a tiny little sprinkle on fondant and cut around each one and seam hide each one.
And tell me that that's not something that you would do.
Who wants to see the quiz? I wanna know who wants to see the quiz. Leave a comment below. So now I have one layer on the pizza pan covered in teal and 2 layers covered in the sprinkle pattern pink fondant. And the 4th layer is it's still at the icing stage. I'm just gonna dollop in a little bit of buttercream and spread it into that narrow valley. Do you understand what I'm saying? Where? Yeah.
I mean, you just woke up.
I did just wake up. No, I'm joking. These cakes are so heavy, you definitely need a board or something to help you lift them. The last thing you want to do is break them. So now I can continue to stack my cakes. The next cake going on top is another sprinkle layer. And then the next cake going on top is actually bare. It's just buttercreamed, but there's no fondant on top of it. Okay, so layer 4 is on the pool, but it doesn't look like a pool yet because it looks like somebody laid a giant layer of cake on a pool. At this point, you want to use a big stainless steel bowl or a pan, anything that's the correct size. And then I use a small serrated knife to cut straight down into the cake, kind of the way I cut off caramelization from the sides of cakes, but I'm kind of doing the opposite. So I'm using the pan as a guide and going all the way around. What was tricky is I'm trying to cut down into 2 layers, not just the top layer, but the second layer as well. Really carefully, I have to pull that cake out of the center without damaging the rim that I want to leave behind. And then I'm gonna just crumb coat that inside revealed chocolate layer of cake inside the pool. And then I'm also just gonna make sure to smooth out the buttercream that's at the bottom of the pool. And at this point, I wanna chill my cake and let that get really cold. I need to create the feeling of depth and water. So I need to make this pool look like it's filled with water all the way down to the bottom, even though I've only cut out 2 layers of cake. So the first thing I'm going to do is cover the inside of the pool with a light teal fondant. If I pick it up on a French rolling pin and I drape it, it's going to touch the rim and then I'm gonna have to push it in. I don't want to do that. So here's what I thought about doing. Once it was rolled out, I flipped my fondant over. I put a cake board that is smaller than the size of the opening of my pool on top. And then I kind of wrapped my fondant up around the cake board, the kind of like a galette. Do you know what a galette is? It's like a really rustic pie that you don't bake in a pie dish. So you just roll out your pie dough, put the fruits, and then you just fold the pie dough over the fruits.
Isn't it galette the thing that...
No, that's a guillotine. Galette?
What's...
Guillotine. So this way, I don't have extra fondant. It wasn't dragging on the sides and ripping off any buttercream. I got it. I was able to just lower it down into the pool, which is really cool because I think when they make real pools in the ground, the pool gets like a liner first. Like they dig the hole, they cover it in concrete, and then they line that. So this is like the pool. This is like the kiddie pool liner. So now I need to trim this fondant and get a nice straight line all around the inside of the pool. To do this, as long as you find something that's the right height, you can use it to help guide your knife. So for me, it was a styrofoam cake riser, and then I put a plexiglass board on top of it. That gave me the perfect height. And then I just kept scooching that around inside the cake and cutting right along the board so I can get it nice and straight inside the pool. We've got the pool liner, and I have to address that the top part of the pool is not covered in fondant yet. This time I need to make sure that my band is taller than all of the others, because not only do I need it to fold over the top, but I need it to fold in and meet the liner. Make sense? I keep saying make sense. Make sense? Make sense? The great thing about covering each cake separately was I knew that my fondant would hit the cake board and the cake would just be perfectly covered to the bottom. But with this, I'm gonna have to not only trim what folds into the pool, but what meets the other layers of the pool. On the outside, this is where it gets tricky. I'm trying to trim the fondant like in the groove where it meets the next cake, but I don't want the tip of my knife to start cutting into the cake below. So I've got to be really careful and just trim little by little and smooth that fondant into the groove. If you do cut into the fondant or you make a little mistake, you can make a bit of fondant paste and hide any marks or nicks on the pool. But the good thing is kiddie pools, let's face it, you get a hole in them and they get holes in them all the time. Now I'm gonna make what I call the blowhole of the kiddie pool, but it's not a blowhole because it's not a whale, but it's the part where you would, put the pump to blow up the pool. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of teal fondant. I cut out a ring, I placed it on that bottom teal layer of cake, and then I actually cut out a little hole in the cake, filled it in with fondant, and made a little sort of nozzle. You know how it's like usually you can pull it out and take the cap off? So I made that little thing out of white fondant and just placed it down into the hole. I didn't want the pool to look empty. I wanted the pool to be filled with water and to be filled with toys so that the children are ready to run and jump inside. I rolled up some little balls of different sizes and different colors to throw into the pool, and then I decided to make a rubber duck. I know that's more of a bath toy, but I feel like rubber ducks deserve to be outside in the water too. That's why I made mine with some cool shades on. We're almost ready for the party, so I need to fill this pool with water. In this case, piping gel. I'm just using plain clear piping gel, and then I'm going to slowly pour the piping gel into the pool.
How many buckets of piping gel did you need?
I used, are you even ready for this?
Yeah.
6 pounds. 6 pounds of piping gel. So this cake was already heavy, and then I added 6 pounds of piping gel.
But this explains the piping gel shortage in Corona last week.
Yes, it was on the news.
Yeah.
It was on the news. I was hoarding piping gel, and no one really cared. There was no one else there to complain, so. To build your skills as a baker, you first need to learn and practice the foundation. I'm hosting a free 4-week baking program teaching just that. From my ultimate chocolate cake to my Italian meringue buttercream, I will help you build the staple core recipes for building a perfect cake. The best part is you can go through the program at your own pace. There's no pressure to meet deadlines, which is very unlike the life of a cake decorator. Check out the link in the description below for all the details. I was actually really worried about cutting this cake, not because I didn't think I could cut through it easily. I just didn't know where all the 6 pounds of piping gel would go. Like, would it just pour out really quick, or would it slowly ooze out? Because I knew it would not just stay in place. But here goes, it's time to empty the pool. To see more cakes that may or may not be this big, click here. They won't be this big. Click here.